I'm out today because of an national and international campaign. So I'm not alone because thousands of people have participated in this campaign and have committed themselves to this campaigh. Veerappa Moily, the Law Minister of India, has said that he will review the Section 121 and Section 124 of the Indian Penal Code. And we must all work towards that revision to see that the laws are more in keeping with the free citizens of a free country. And the third thing that I want to mention is that we are all together in a quest for peace and justice. And we will, in the coming days, this quest for peace and justice, this campaign for peace and justice will take us further. And I want to greet all of you on this occasion. It's an occasion for happiness. It's also an occasion for commitment for the future.
Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. The renowned Indian physician and human rights activist, Dr. Binayak Sen, has been sentenced to life in prison. On Friday, Dr. Sen and 2 others were convicted in court in India on charges of sedition and conspiracy. Described as India's most famous political prisoner, Dr. Sen is known as the physician of the poor. He has spent many years working as a doctor in the rural tribal areas of Chhattisgarh in central India and reported on unlawful killings of indigenous people by the police and private militias. The region is the site of intensifying conflict between India's central government and the Maoist Naxalites. In May of 2007, Dr. Sen was charged under the Draconian Unlawful Activities Prevention Act and the Chhattisgarh Special Public Safety Act. The allegations against him range from helping the Maoist insurgency, being a member of the terrorist organization, to waging war against the Indian state. In a statement released after his conviction, Amnesty International called Dr. Sen a prisoner of conscience. Asia-Pacific Director Sam Zarifi said, quote, "This sentence will seriously intimidate other human rights defenders who would provide a peaceful outlet for the people's grievances. Amnesty International believes that the charges against Dr. Sen are baseless and politically motivated," the statement said. Immediately after the sentencing Friday, Dr. Sen was taken back into custody. He had been free on bail since May of 2009. Earlier this year, Democracy Now!'s Anjali Kamat had a chance to speak with Dr. Sen by telephone while he was out on bail.
I was incarcerated for reasons that were not personal, and the reason why there was an international campaign for my release was because I was incarcerated in a public cause. That was the general perception. And certainly no criminal acts have been even alleged against me so far. Whatever acts I have been, charged with are basically political in nature. So I take it as given that my incarceration had a political basis, and as a political case, I cannot have an individual freedom, and there is enormous amount of oppression, expropriation taking place across the country, with which we are still engaging, and also large numbers of people are in jail for reasons that we believe have very little to do with any acts that they might have performed. So till such events continue, and until such events are granted the justice they deserve, I cannot count myself as being free.
Do you believe the situation in India has gotten better or worse since your release in terms of respecting people's rights to struggle for more sustainable development?
Without doubt, the situation has got worse since my release, and it is continuing to get to worsen. One is that there has now been a fairly open campaign against human rights workers and civil society workers of every description. The military campaign in the areas, in some areas of the country, has been stepped up, and the degree of violence has increased. And not only that, we also believe that the structural violence and the kind of poverty and dispossession that characterizes the poorest sections of the population those phenomena have also got worse. So all in all, a pretty bleak scenario.
Justice for Binayak Sen! 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 Leave him now! Now! Leave him now! Now!
Dr. Binayak Sen is a pediatrician. He's a doctor who's trained at Christian Medical College in Vellore, which is an institute known for its commitment to social justice in the practice of medicine.
Binayak was one who, though he was, the top of his class, kept to that mission that was, like the motto of the medical school.
And he is someone who really believed in practicing what his principles were, which is healthcare for all.
Therefore, work was like treating malnourished children, and they would get them better, and the kids would go back into the community, and they would come back in very shortly because they had all the problems that had been treated in the hospital. So it was very clear that if he wanted a lasting effect, he would have to move out of the hospital.
As a doctor servicing those communities, not only the socio-economic condition, but the enormous state repression on them, it just stares you in your face. You can't escape it.
In a deprived region, working to provide healthcare, he realized that you can't provide health until and unless you can provide also security of life and basic rights and freedom from human rights abuse.
The way to impact on health of his patients, to make better the health of the children, was to go out there and improve the socio-economic condition, to fight for these poor people and their rights, to make sure that their basic civil liberties were kind of guaranteed. And because he was then in a situation, an educated person in a situation where he could make an impact.
It was as a doctor that he started getting involved in exposing human rights abuse in those regions.
I think Binayak has taken it to the extreme in terms of fighting for the rights of the poor tribal people of Chhattisgarh.
There is a huge land grab going on in the Chhattisgarh state, with global capital and also Indian multinational companies moving in to seize the minerals below the land. Because though it's a state of very poor people, it's also very, very rich in minerals.
This has all now become worse and worse as India moves into this new globalized century where there is everything is about industrialization, and with that comes lots of abuses, I guess, of the indigenous population.
The globalization and the economic reforms in India and everywhere, it creates a certain brand of politics. And like everywhere else, in India it has bred a certain brand of politics, which is a very extremist kind of thing.
So in this background of land grab, what has happened is basically almost civil war between the Maoists and between a force created by the state called the Salwa Judum. And Dr. Binayak Sen got involved in exposing the atrocities of the state, and that is what directly led to his arrest.
The government has this anti-terrorism laws which gives them the power to throw people into jail citing terrorist activity.
The war against terror, and therefore laws which can deny you any kind of right to bail or to any kind of basic dissent, which basically make any kind of objection or dissent or protest against the government criminal activity. Now these laws which are being brought in to fight terror are actually being used to silence human rights activists.
Assuming all charges against him are true, assuming, the statute says the maximum sentence for this punishment is 3 years. Now, if he had been convicted, he would have been out by now.
We are here on behalf of everybody who stands up for what is right. And Binayak has been thrown into jail trying to stand up for these poor people.
Today it actually sadly marks 2 years of his continuing incarceration in jail without any bail. So that is part of the reason for choosing today. And today is also a day where global solidarity is being expressed for him. There is a demonstration in Edinburgh, there is one in Bristol, within the UK. There are 8 or 10 demonstrations in different parts of the United States, and there is one in Germany and of course in different parts of India. And the basic demand is to free.
Ultimately, do we stand for freedom? Do we stand for due process of law? Do we stand for basic rights? Do we stand for fair trial? And if all that is political, I don't care. If all that is not political, I don't care either. But I do think people need to have a fair, trial, a fair process, a fair justice, and I think any civilized society should stand by those rules.
Binayak Sen ko riha karo! Riha karo! Riha karo! Binayak Sen ko riha karo! Riha karo! Riha karo! Justice for Binayak Sen! Justice for Binayak Sen! Justice for Binayak Sen! Justice for Binayak Sen! Release him! No! No! Release him! No! No!
A large number of intellectuals have now come out in open support of Binayak Sen, saying that the life term given to the activist is unfair. 80 intellectuals, including Noam Chomsky, have signed a statement in his support.
The crusade for Dr. Binayak Sen growing each day. 80 intellectuals have signed a statement in protest, including noted American political activist Noam Chomsky. It says, such an action on the part of the state will inevitably raise the thought in the minds of many that an order within which the activities of a person like Dr. Sen can be held to be seditious is not worth defending.
Even session judge can pass such a ridiculous, uncalled for judgment. क्या हम सारे हिंदुस्तान में इस किस्म की intolerant atmosphere पैदा कर रहे हैं कि नहीं?
At Jantar Mantar, the protests were led by Swami Agnivesh and Arundhati Roy, both considered Naxal sympathizers by the government.
The laws of unlawful activities and Chhattisgarh Special Public Security Act, because these are very loose, draconian laws under which almost anybody can be convicted for anything.
Dr. Sen, an award-winning pediatrician, has been working in the forests of Chhattisgarh, treating tribals for decades. A local court has now given him life imprisonment, finding him guilty of working with Naxals.
This is one of the many gatherings that they say they are planning to make in the coming few months. They are going to step up the pressure on the government to not only release Dr. Binayak Sen, but also offer him a compensation for the 2 years that he had already spent in jail.
With Rohit Bhan in Ahmedabad, in New Delhi, Tanima Biswas for NDTV.